Hey, tiny friends. Welcome back to another episode of the Pet Cemetery. Today I'll be creating some stones for the path and adding some more greenery to the landscaping. I'm going to be using this Primo Accents polymer clay. The Primo polymer clay is made by Sculpey, and Sculpey makes several different types of polymer clay. This one is called Gray Granite, and it looks just like stone. So if you need to make any stones or rocks, any type of stone sculpture, gravestones, tombstones, bird baths, or anything like that, this is a really good choice. I have explored many brands of polymer clays. I just really love the Sculpey brand. It just has that right amount of firmness and softness to it. It's not too soft, so it's still pliable and it's not really hard at all. It warms up pretty quickly, so it's really easy to work with. If you experience any medical conditions with your hands and you're still able to use polymer clay, this is a good choice to go with. I'm going to make a batch of rocks. They're pretty simple. It doesn't take a lot of time because we know that rocks come in many different forms and shapes. So you can make a whole batch of these in a very short amount of time. And for the first few, I'm going to kind of shape them and mold them a little so that they look like the softer, smoother type of stones or rocks. And then I'll switch it up a little bit and I'll just begin to break off pieces so that I'm getting that sharper type of look to the rock. And these rocks will look like they were broken off of bigger rocks. This way I'll have a variety of different styles, different shapes. I'm going with different sizes. I'm going to be making some tiny little pebble rocks as well. You should just follow your instructions on the package. The average is 270 to 275 degrees in your oven and anywhere up to 30 minutes. With little pieces like this, I like to just bake them for 20 minutes. I don't always follow the instructions on my package, but you should definitely do that. But I'm so used to baking polymer clay and working with it that I can estimate it. And if I just have like one or two pieces in and they're really tiny, like if I'm making little tiny bottles for the dollhouse, I'll just bake them for like 15 minutes or something. I mean, it doesn't take very long for the tiny little pieces, but definitely follow what your package says. I'm going to pop these in the oven and come back. I'm going to add a couple different layers of washes, and I've mixed up some black acrylic and water, and I'm just going to put these in the bowl and get them nice and covered with the wash. This isn't a very thin wash. I have a lot of the paint sitting on the bottom, so I'm just going to swirl these around a bit until they're pretty much all covered, and I'll get them nice and coated with this black wash. I just feel like this is the easiest way to do this. I'm just going to swirl them around a bit and make sure they get nice and coated just for a couple minutes. And once they're nice and coated, I'm just going to take my tweezers and start to pull them out and lay them on the paper towel to dry. I'm just going to fish around and pull out all of these stones, make sure I got all the tiny little pebbles out as well. When you're using washes, they're going to be a lot darker when they're wet. So they'll dry and look a lot lighter. And some areas will have darker spots from where the paint has settled. And that's what is so great about this technique. These are now dried and they're ready to go. I want to give them a little more texture and dirty them up a little more. So I'm going to do an experiment. That's always fun, right? I have some of the sand that I used on the path, and I have some watered down glue. And I was thinking about just picking some random stones. So I'm just going to use a little bit of this glue on just a handful of these rocks, stones. I'm going to call them both. So some are rocks, some are stones. I don't really know what the difference is unless it's just a preference from where you're from or where you live. I don't know. Uh, is there a difference between rocks and stones? I know pebbles are the little tiny baby ones, but anyways, tomato, tomato, we'll say. I'm just taking a little bit of this glue, a little bit of the sand, sprinkling it on, and uh, going from there. So, with that said, this is going to get a lot messier, and that's the fun part about experimenting, right? It can tend to be messy, especially when we don't know what the heck we're doing or we're trying new things. So, yeah, I really want this sand to stick, so I'm going to try some fabric stiff too. So now that I've got my rocks all covered with the sand, I'm going to spray them with fabric stiff. And this is where it began to get a bit messy. Now, after I used this, I did realize that I do have a pre-made bottle of watered down glue that I used for the ground, but I didn't think about that. So I automatically jumped to my fabric stiff, and we'll see what happens. I'm just going to sprinkle on a little more just to be on the safe side because I feel like I sprayed it all off. So let's just add a little more to this. Why not, right? What harm can it do? Okay, while those ones are drying, I have decided to add more to the ones that I didn't add sand to. So I mixed up a batch of very light gray, and I'm just dry brushing some of it onto the rocks to give them a little more dimension, a little more detail. The sandstones are still drying, so next I am going to add a little bit of brown to these rocks that don't have the sand on them. So I mixed up a bit of burnt sienna with a little bit of brown and added a tiny bit of water. And I'm just going to add that color to these as well. This will just make them look a little more dirtier. And I'm not covering them completely. I'm just randomly tapping the color in areas of the rocks. Okay, the sandstones are dried, and that worked out really well. This stuff is really stuck to these rocks, and it's given them nice texture. So I love that. It worked out. You can give it a try. And now I'm just going to go in with that same brown that I created and just do the same thing. Just tap that brown randomly on these stones and give them a little more color. I feel like the sand on them is a little bit too light, and we are definitely not at the beach. So I'm just dirtying them up just a little bit more. Okay, this is what they look like. They are all ready to be placed in the project. And sure, I could have used real rocks, real stones, and even possibly did some of these techniques to them. But I wanted to show you how you can achieve this with polymer clay. Plus, any chance I have to pull out the polymer clay, I do it because I don't get a lot of chances to do that. So now it's time to put them into place. Okay, before I permanently glue these into place, I decided to just lay them out first. This way, I can play around with them, make sure I like the way it looks, rearrange them, switch them in and out. I just want to make sure I'm happy with the way it looks before fully committing. It'll also help me remember where I want what rock to sit. So you're going to see me switching them out and moving them around and just figuring out the best placement for each rock. So, if I turn it one way, it doesn't look good. I'll turn it another way. It may look better. So it's just all a fun little game. I like the way they look. And I'm using tacky glue. I'm putting a good amount on the bottom of the rock and just putting it back into place. Okay, I'm going to bring the path all the way down to the end of the frame, and I am using watered down tacky glue and a dropper. Now, this is not how I did it originally, and we'll talk about that later on, but I'm just going to put some sand down, put it into place, and I'm going to keep working while this dries. Okay, now I'm going to take tiny little bits of grass and just put them into place in between the rocks. I'm using several different things, but for the most part, I'm using the strips of grass that I purchased from Temu and I showed in a previous episode. I believe it was episode 6. I showed a haul of all the greenery and landscaping. You can just cut tiny bits of these strips. They go a long way. So I'm cutting just the slightest, smallest pieces off of the strips and putting them into place. And I'm going to put some right in the path as well. And I'm also using little round tufts of grass. So I'm just using whatever I'm pulling out or whatever I think is going to look good. And now I've got a strip of tiny little yellow wildflowers. And I'm actually only going to use one of these, but I'm going to cut them into little bits and pieces and then just kind of scatter them about the path. So if you purchase any of the flower tufts, you can easily just cut those down as well. These are super, super sticky. They were sticking to my fingers. I was pulling them apart and tearing them up because they have a super sticky adhesive on them. And not all of the greenery is like that, but these flowers have a really strong adhesive on them. I am using tacky glue as well. And I'm just going to put this last little piece right there. So this is what it's looking like so far, but I'm going to keep going and add a little more. And I want to add a little more color. So I have red flowers as well. They're the same as the yellow. They're just a red option. And I'm going to use just a couple of those. I'm not going to use as many as I did with the yellow, but I'm just going to throw just a few down for color. A pop of color. There will be a little more color in the cemetery, but not so much out in the front. Okay, so now I'm going to take some dry, dead blades of grass or plants and just put little clusters about. I will cut some down, but some of them I want to kind of hang over the path, like when you're walking down the path. You know how when you're walking on a hiking trail, you got those long blades of greenery just hanging over and it kind of brushes your leg. Yeah, that's kind of my idea I'm going with here. I am laying down some sticks. And I found this dead stuff outside, and it was probably some sort of dry plant or something, but I had a few pieces of those, and I put those into place too. I have this little stick that matched the dead tree, so I wanted to place it there as if it fell or broke off the tree. Now, I also found a bunch of tiny little twigs and sticks in the bottom of my branch bag, and also some mulch and loose bark. So I'm going to separate this bag and use some of these tiny little pieces as well. And some of them are so small, they're just like little tiny specks, but would go perfect in the project. So I'll show you this tiny little piece I have. So I have a few of those as well, and those would be nice along the path. So, or maybe around the brush where the leaves are or something. I don't know, but it's going to be glued down. So I got a handful. I'm going to go through this and it'll be easier for me to pick and choose what I want to use. Now, this is the stump that I created. I said I wanted to create another one to try and put in the front. For this one, I used all gray tones. I didn't use any brown at all. I just wanted it to look more like an older dead tree. So this is what it ended up looking like. And I'm going to add a little more detail to this before I put it into place. In that bag I just went through, I found this tiny patch of moss. And I like this piece because it looks like it has one piece that's kind of climbing up. So I'm going to glue this into place with a little bit of tacky glue. It's going to be kind of like the climbing moss on the tree stump. Yeah. I'm also going to cut down some of this dead foliage. I don't even know what this is. The straw, this dead grass. I don't know, but I love using it. And I do plan on creating some straw brooms with this stuff. I found this stuff at my local hobby shop that has supplies for HO scale and train models and car models and stuff like that. And I've just been using the heck out of it for this project. But a little bit of this goes a very long way and it's working out great. So I'm just making little clusters and I'm going to put them in place. Once they dry, I'll cut them down because I definitely don't want these ones to be really long. But I really do plan on making some brooms with these. I know Miss Margot needs a broom for the Josephine house, and that was originally why I bought this, but it's come in so handy for this project. Okay, I'll come back to this in a little bit when this stuff dries. Now I'm going to go ahead and put those little sticks into place, and I'm just going to scatter them about in no specific manner. I'm just laying them down. And I definitely want some along the path. So I'm going to be putting some down around this path and just trying to fill up some of the emptier spaces wherever I feel like something needs to be there, or there needs to be a stick there, or some greenery. That is what I'm going to be doing. Okay, back to the stump to cut down this dead foliage. I'm trying not to cut it all at the same length. I really don't want this stuff to be super long, and oops, I pulled that out. I need to glue that back into place. Okay, I'm adding some tacky glue, a big glob of tacky glue, and I also have hot glue on the stump. And I'm just going to press it down into place. And then just push it down nice and firm. I realized that I kind of hid the climbing moss a little bit, but I guess if somebody's looking really closely or really inspecting this project, that's going to be a hidden detail, which I kind of like the idea of hidden details. So again, I'm just filling up some space wherever I feel like it needs to be. And I have these little cactus shrubs. I know that they're not cactus, but they feel like it. They're so hard, but they're little shrubs and they're super hard, like a cactus. So I'm just going to use some of these and put them into place. Now, I didn't like these when I received them, but I decided to hold on to them because I just knew that I could put them into this project and give them a place of their own. So I had forgotten and could not find where I created the hole for that little one. So it took me a very long time and I had to make another one. I have no idea where the first hole is. And now I'm just laying down some more greenery or foliage. And I'm just trying to fill up some of these empty spaces. Some of this process is pretty much a no-brainer because wild stuff grows everywhere and anywhere. So it's, I can get away with a lot of it. But then there are some pieces and parts that just don't look right and I have to remove it or I have to think about what I want to put where. So I guess it's, kind of like a give and take kind of thing. Some of it's pretty easy and, some of it can be a little challenging. Alrighty, tiny friends. I also aged the dairy sign. I didn't want it to look so brand new, so I used some watered down brown acrylic for that as well. And that is all I have for today. And I'm going to give you a nice look around at what I have so far. I thought I would be ending this front section with today's video, but I needed to break it up. So there will be one more video for this front section. And then we'll talk about what's next with this project and what's coming up next month. I hope you all have enjoyed today's episode. And if you have, please hit that like button and give it a thumbs up. Let me know what you thought about today's episode in the comments below. And also, since I only have one more episode for this front section, I'm going to be finishing up the final touches, covering up that barrier around the border, that fresh dirt that I laid down recently, adding some more greenery around that and some grass. And if you guys have any ideas before I finish this front section and move on to the cemetery, if you guys can think of anything or you have any ideas of something that I can put into place, or maybe if I need to remove anything, let me know what you think. Yeah, does it look like it's pretty complete other than the final touches that I have to make around the border here? Let me know what your thoughts are. I'm curious to know because once I move on from this, I don't want to have to come back. And I think I have all of my ideas into play. Okay, so this front section where the sand is, you can notice that that is a little bit darker. It is completely dry. I realized that what I did to put this down was not what I originally did, and I used too much glue. So instead of using my spray bottle of pre-made solution that I made, I used the dropper. So I have to keep that in mind. I will give it a mist and lay some more sand down so I can kind of match it up to the rest of the path and it doesn't look off. So I'll fix that in the next video or before the next episode, maybe. So let me know if anyone has any ideas. Should I remove anything? What your thoughts are? Any thoughts, opinions, comments, ideas are always greatly appreciated. Yeah, this is a nice look at what I've got so far. And I just can't believe that there's only one more episode before this front section is completed. I can't believe that I've gotten this far and I'm one episode away from being done with this front section. This has definitely exceeded my imagination of what it would look like or what I thought I could make it look like. So I'm very happy with what it looks like. And Again, if anybody has any ideas or if there's something I need to do or redo or remove, please let me know in the comments below. But you guys are so great. I love all your comments. I love your stories. Thank you so much for sharing your stories with me. I love reading them. You guys are so kind. And oh my gosh, don't be messing with somebody that you guys like, because a lot of you stuck up for me when it came to modifying that antique bathroom Strombecker furniture. So I want to thank you all for that as well. Um, Gosh, this has been great so far. So let me know if I need to throw anything in there, or if you want to see anything in there that I'm capable of making before I move on. I will be filling in a little more of the empty spaces around most of the greenery, not the empty spaces that you see in the grass right now, but anything that's already planted in the ground that needs some greenery around it. So, as always, I like to thank everybody for watching. Thank you all for subscribing. Welcome to all my new subscribers. Thank you all so much for your support. This has been so great so far. Until the next time, tiny friends, I hope you all have a lovely day, and I will see you all on the mini side.